Time is produced by John DeSando. Listen to shows and read reviews online at wcbe.org.
I'm John DeSando.
I'm Jordan Hanalami.
And this is It's Movie Time.
All right.
George, welcome back.
Thank you.
I'm in my kind of Wild West mood here.
You are.
Yeah,
You are.
I am, and I've got my, for people who can see, I have my bandana.
Yes.
From The Harder They Fall, which is
Yes.
not the movie we're talking about.
Netflix is bringing back the Western.
It is, and it is going, actually the one we're talking about, which is The Power of the Dog, has been in theaters for a few days. Now that's, of course, a sneaky way of justifying a nomination for the Oscars, but it's also kind of fun to have a chance to see it on the big screen. Because it goes to Netflix on December 1st.
Yep, and I'm glad that doing this was, I would have seen the movie regardless, but the encouragement to see it on the big screen was definitely warranted, and if possible, it's a great one to see as big as possible.
On my Facebook, I had a disparaging remark from a close friend of mine, who's a very smart and intelligent lady.
Yeah.
And she does reflect a certain attitude toward this film, and it's a negative attitude. And I'm wondering why. Does that cross your mind at all?
Well, only because, and it was before seeing it, this movie has been polarizing out of the gate. Like from the initial film circuit, it sounds like the film festival circuit where it started to debut. It was a movie that was, it was one of those things where the reception was strong. It was strong, positive, negative, polar, just all kinds of different ways. It was a strong, people felt it, but yeah, there was a lot to feel for sure.
So this is starring Benedict Cumberbatch. He brings a lot of star power to this.
He does.
And it's set in 1925, so it's not the Wild West. It's Montana, 1925.
But just even the West in general, not something I associate with Benedict Cumberbatch. So that itself was, there was a hurdle in my brain to get over for him playing a Westerner, for sure.
And kind of in the Daniel Day-Lewis oil magnate guy, just crusty and
yep. Again, strong. Yeah, I guess that word "strong" keeps coming back. Strong personality, and from the outset, there is a really amazing balance with his character between back and forth, where he, this kind of opening or early scene at the dinner where it's where they're all having, he and these group of men he's leading are having dinner, and it's a quiet, slow burn, similar to like you referenced with Daniel Day-Lewis, and where it's they're bubbling, and then all of a sudden he erupts, and there was definitely plenty of that along the way. You could feel that underneath him.
There's no question he's the leader of the band.
Absolutely.
All of these cattlemen,
Yep.
And they're rough and ready, and they're visiting the inn where Kirsten Dunst is the proprietress, the widow. I forget, her name is Rose.
Yes.
Right. Where she's running the place with her delicate son.
Yes. You get a little early glimpse of him making these paper flowers. You get a very early on feeling of how there's definitely a sensitivity and a delicate balance to him, and the way that she cares for him too and loves him, and supports him, especially at a time 100 years ago when support for that kind of feeling and stuff definitely wasn't as strong, and we see that later in the movie for sure.
And George, that's what I like about this. This is a modern Western, as far as I'm concerned.
Yep.
We're talking about sensitivity issues. We're talking about gender issues.
Yep.
We're talking about homophobia.
Yeah.
So we're talking about some areas where the old West that I grew up on just didn't appear in films.
Right.
It wasn't,
for sure. Yeah.
It wasn't even thought about.
Absolutely. And with that, but it doesn't hold. Yeah. It feels like there's that, like you said, crustiness, and it feels very lived in that time. It doesn't feel like it's something that they modernized the behavior or anything like that. People were staunch in their feelings about it. So.
Phil, the Cumberbatch character, is pretty much a loner, except that he sleeps in the same bedroom with his brother.
Yeah, and there's some of that stuff that's, and that's what's one thing I really love about this movie in general is, without knowing for sure, obviously, there is a very authentic feel. It feels
Yes.
like the clothing, the buildings they're in, the way they go about their business, like it feels very, very lived in, and so I don't know if that's just a lack of rooms or so, if something like that is.
It was really a huge place.
It is,
And
yeah.
here they are, but that's part of the infantilism of the movie. That is that these boys haven't truly grown up, except his brother.
Yeah, and brothers who, as you have noted, in your writing and stuff about it too, are very, polar opposite brothers.
Oh my gosh, they couldn't be any different.
In so many different ways. You learn more and more throughout the movie. But yeah, that they have this closeness of, like, where were you? Why didn't you come to bed earlier? Like those kind of things where it's like, when were you home and stuff, where it's this, I don't know, it's a really interesting relationship for sure.
Jesse Plemons, who plays George the brother.
And is the real life beau of Kirsten Dunst.
Isn't that cute?
Yes.
And they have a moment there where I think it shows. You remember when he says, thanks, it's a good not to be alone?
I actually talked to my wife about it last night.
Did you? Good. Oh, all right.
It is a very, very beautiful moment where, he steps away and just a genuine, beautiful landscape, obviously, and things, and just, appreciative to not be alone. And
George, it makes me realize too that George, as seemingly civilized as he is, contrasting with his rough brother, that George doesn't himself understand the full implications of marrying Rose.
For sure, you're absolutely right. There is while he does seem to care for her, there is definitely a trophy wife aspect to their, what is his fawning over her and what he thinks she can be, as opposed to, he's not marrying who she is, he's marrying who she thinks she can be.
Yes, and there's a certain reserve, broken down, I think best for me, when he has to tend to her after she's falling down drunk. I think he carries her away.
Yeah.
And I see that a chance for him to bond with her, but it is, this is what is so good about it. The way you described it is exactly the way I would describe it for Jane Campion, the director, who is most memorably the director of Piano, for which he won the Oscar. And so Campion is no slouch when it comes to detail.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I gotta think that these authentic details, right down to the Model T Fords. Isn't that cute?
Yeah, rumbling right out of the barn there, and even the way you can even see the way Phil Benedict character watches the car. Obviously he's wondering where George is going, but he seems to there still seems to be a marveling over this automobile that's rumbling through the West.
I remember one film. It starred a guy who had done a lot of stunt work, but he's riding the train and he's using an apple peeler, maybe 1890. So clearly, maybe heavy-handed symbol of changes that are coming. This kind that just crank like that. And it peels.
Absolutely.
It peels it. And I still have that same feeling with this one, set in 1925, that we're in a transition period. And of course, we're right before the Great Depression.
Yeah.
But this is Montana. This is wide open spaces. Actually filmed in New Zealand.
Oh,
okay. That's where she's from, where Campion is from. Amazing how I tried to alert my granddaughter who's going to Montana State, but what good is that? It's not Montana. It's depicting Montana.
Right.
However, some of the redneck stuff you see here, my granddaughter's learning very quickly. Out in that. George, just a little bit about Peter, the son, played by Scott, what's his name? By Cody Smit-McPhee.
Yeah.
What'd you think about that?
Thought he was fantastic, and he's an actor that has been unassumingly building a pretty awesome resume for years now. I first saw him in a movie called Let Me In about 10 years ago.
Okay.
A very soft, kind of subtle horror film with Chloe Grace Moretz, and he's continued. He's done done stuff like this. He's done X-Men. He's
good.
been like, he's got a pretty versatile background at this point. I just thought to harbor both the difficulty of being an effeminate cowboy kid
Good.
growing up at that time, while also having the strength to make some pretty difficult and important decisions to him, to handle that stuff, and you believe the strength that he has.
Yes.
That's tough.
Isn't it nice to see somebody besides Timothy Chalamet?
Yes. Great point.
George, what would you advise our audience about this film?
To watch it. I loved it. As big a screen as you can. It's not. I think it's a strong enough movie that it doesn't have to be seen on a giant screen. I think Netflix is okay, but still, some of the landscape stuff is beautiful.
Well, if you're like the David Reynolds, you can have one the size of your living room.
Right. Yes.